Hi everybody, this is Nadia, your coach at Method 3 Fitness, and I am joined by Peter Solarius, Associate Marriage and Family Therapist. And today, Peter's going to be talking to us about wellness and resilience. Is that right?
Yes, thank you. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I'm going to let you explain a little bit more about what you do and what kind of clients you see.
Absolutely. So, as Nadia mentioned, I'm an associate therapist, and I work with really just the whole gamut, with adolescents, with adults, with couples, with families, with individuals. And people come in with all sorts of things, but at the very core of it, usually, is a wish for a richer, more developed, larger life. And that can mean letting go of old hurts. It can mean learning some new skills, or it can mean leading into some pain that hasn't really been fully acknowledged and needs to be, so that you can move past it into the rest of your life.
Wow, that sounds like amazing work.
Well, so far.
Well, I know that a lot of people come into Method 3 Fitness looking to improve their lives, one, to improve their physical bodies, but also there's a huge component of kind of mental and emotional health as well, because without that piece, it's really difficult to dedicate yourself, to commit yourself to achieving those goals, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, what we used to call the mind-body connection, we've discovered in the last 20 years is so rich and so intimate that it's almost hard to say where the brain and the mind stop and the body starts. And so we think of it now more as a system. And in that system, a change in one part can have repercussions and changes in many of the other parts as well.
Wow.
Yeah. In fact, that it goes so far that the parts in your brain that register physical pain, the anterior insula and the anterior cingulate cortex, are the same parts of the brain that register emotional pain. And so when you're physically hurting, or when you're hurting from a broken heart, your brain actually can't tell the difference between that pain.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's super interesting. So I know that like during the workouts, right? When you start to feel the burn, when it really hurts and you want to stop, do you feel that same kind of, I don't know, I know, you know how sometimes your mind gets in there and it's like, okay, I can't do this anymore.
Yes.
So that happens on an emotional level as well, like even when you're not using your physical.
Absolutely. In fact, two things can happen. So one is that if there's a place of pain, let's say you say, Peter, that shirt doesn't work for you. And now a little bit of anxiety or distress comes up for me. And so it's very likely I'm going to react to that. And I might make an excuse, or I might say something frustrated back to you. So that can happen. I can be reactive. But the other thing that happens is we walk around things and we don't know we're walking around them. So we may, for example, always have had distress about something that happened a long time ago for us. And it may actually be affecting how we are with other people in our life, etc. And we may not see that every time we touch it, we're actually walking around it. And sometimes it needs a person on the outside to say, hey, did you know? Every time family comes up, here's what happens. And so that's where therapy can be helpful. Just like with physical development, physical wellness, it's helpful to have someone point out, when you do that, your knee always caves inward. And let's try this band here so that your knee doesn't have to cave inward, and so you can learn to compensate with the muscles that really are built to compensate for that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And I feel like one thing I just want to mention is that I feel like there are so many people out there that have some resistance to going to therapy on that emotional level, even though a lot of people will get a membership to the gym. And this is kind of how I like to think about it, is people come into the gym to get stronger, and that's actually building some physical resilience, right? So it's enabling you to take on harsher physical loads. That's what makes you feel stronger and more energetic in the long run.
Right.
And that therapy does the exact same thing on kind of an emotional, spiritual level.
It does, it does. I remember reading a study from years ago that when it comes to, and this you have to take into account, this is 15 years ago, when women enter physical therapy, physical development training to lose weight, they embody a sense of what they want to lose. So they have this image of themselves as heavier than they'd like to be. And men embody an image typically of what they will look like when they're ripped or buff or swole. And it turns out that because of the difference in the image that's held, it's easier for, back then in this study, women to drop out than for men, because the men hold the end goal image as opposed to the part that they're trying to get away from.
Oh.
And so the same thing can happen in therapy. If you enter therapy and you say, I'm broken and I need to get fixed, yeah, you're absolutely right. That can make anyone reluctant. But if the reason for going to therapy is, I deserve a bigger life, I deserve a life filled with joy and fulfillment and happiness, and for me too, I also get to have this, then your encounter can feel easier and actually less conflicting. And so therapy can be a really positive experience as opposed to fixing. It can be incremental growth.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of the people who come in here really truly feel that they're at that place where they get stuck. And I don't know if you knew this, but so first of all, Peter is one of our partners here, so he's kind of in the trenches with all the rest of you. So he knows what it's like to come in and have a goal that he wants to achieve. And be rocking it too. But a lot of our partners here are moms, and they're coming back into working out working out for the first time after having kids.
Yeah.
So they're at that place where they feel like they're really needing to feel like themselves again,
right.
Or they need to really discover who they are again.
Yeah. So that's such a good point, which means that if the frame that you hold is, I deserve this, I'm doing something wonderful for myself, and this is time that's just for me, and I will get something of benefit out of it, then it's much more likely that the experience itself will be supportive and encouraging, as opposed to maybe discouraging.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I know that going to a therapist is really awesome, and Peter knows that as well. But I was wondering if there's some way, or if you have a few tips that you could give that are really practical, that our partners and our community around San Jose can start implementing right away in order to be more resilient.
Yeah. So resilience is such an important factor. Resilience, I think physically or mentally, essentially means that when you encounter something that's difficult, that you find inside yourself the capacity to take the next step and to take the next step. And so what we were talking about before actually is a really good approach for resilience, which is when you discover something that's difficult, and it could be this relationship, or particularly it's this feeling, I always get anxious when. Instead of distancing away from it, pushing away from it, to discover that you can stay in that experience for a moment, and for one moment more, and for one moment more. And it doesn't make the anxiety or sadness or whatever it is go away, but something in your brain starts to realize that I can bear this, and by bearing it, my life includes all the feelings I'm actually having, instead of pushing away those feelings that we before thought we could not bear. So the tip really is, when you start to feel something difficult, take a moment for yourself and just experience that you actually are having that feeling. Perhaps find where it is in your body. It might be in your chest or your belly. And then just focus for a few seconds with your mind at that place. And some people even say, does that have a weight, or a temperature, or a color, or a shape? And that helps your mind stay in that experience of the emotion. And just like doing squats or lunges, your brain at that point is forming new connections that will give you further emotional resilience.
Wow, great.
Yeah. That's kind of cool, right?
Yeah, that's an awesome tip.
Yeah.
Do you have any more for us?
Yeah, so self-care. And for some people, self-care has become kind of a catchphrase, but self-care really means I count too. It means having and finding compassion for yourself. It means saying to yourself, I matter. And when you say that, you ask yourself, so what wonderful thing can I do just for myself to enrich my life a little bit? And to ask that question means that you've already presumed that you deserve to have your life be enriched a little bit. And for some people it could be, I am going to just wallow in doing nothing for the next 60 minutes. Instead of feeling guilty, I'm going to enjoy it.
Okay.
And when you enjoy it, you form new neural connections as well that build resilience. Someone else might say, I'm going to do this crazy ass workout. Or someone else might say, you know what, I'm going to go see a movie. It's a schlocky movie, and I'm going to buy extra caramel corn. So whatever it is that can give you a little sense of joy or lift or pleasure. Some people play an instrument. Some people like to meditate or read a book. Those activities almost teach the brain that you deserve this. So along with the good effect that it has, there's also a secondary learning going on, which is you also deserve this. You deserve to be cared about. You deserve to have something nice happen for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so is that kind of, well, in addition to giving yourself that positive experience in the moment, is it kind of filling your life with more positivity so that you know when those negative moments happen that that's not kind of all there is, or it's not inevitable?
Oh, I like that. So there's a thing that happens where the emotional space that we're in activates memories and experiences that have a lot in common with that emotional space. So if you're happy and uplifted and joyful, it will be so easy if I encounter you and say, okay, what other joyful things do you remember? And you go, oh, this, and this. And it'll feel like the field of your life is filled with joy. And the same thing the other way around. When you're sad about something or depressed or dragged down, and what will come to mind is other experiences when you were sad or alone or dragged down. And so it's so important to build those, we call them resources, that when you get dragged down, you can go to that one place or that one experience or that one memory that allows you to have a slightly different experience. Even though your brain is painting everything blue, you have this one place of warmth, of orange. Maybe it's a memory of something fun you did, or that night before Christmas, or that first date with that guy who mattered so much. Whatever it is, if you spent the time deepening in that memory of that experience, it will serve you as a resource when you need it.
All right. That's awesome.
And it's such a good question.
And it's pretty simple too.
It's simple if you do it.
Right.
It's like all this stuff with all these machines and stuff here as well. It's simpler if you do it. And if someone spent a few minutes kind of explaining what you do with that piece of equipment and what you do with that piece of equipment. And this is one of our pieces of equipment. So
that's so true. We carry it with us everywhere.
There you go.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I was wondering if you have a tip for, I know that couples work is also individual work, but is there something that couples or even families can do together, like parents with children or partners can do together? Yeah,
so it's funny to have yourself have something wonderful happen for you. The very best place is to start by hearing what's going on with the other person. And sometimes we call this radical vulnerability. So for example, let's say if we were in a fight, and you're saying, you know, you this. My natural response would be to defend myself or maybe even to push back. If instead I can take just a moment and reflect back and say, Nadia, I can hear that you're really angry right now, and I can see that there's a lot going on for you, and that doesn't look easy at all. And I'm sorry that I somehow was the stimulus of this, because I don't wish it for you or for me. So when I've done that, I've created a small space that you can choose to step into that would soften our dialogue. And now your dialogue, instead of more anger, might be, you know what, I've really felt pretty alone and sad the last while because you just haven't been here for me. And then I reflect that back and I say, yeah, I hear that sadness and I know I haven't been here. And that allows you to go deeper. And so what you're having now, whether it's with a child or with a partner or with a work colleague, you're having a different kind of discussion. Yeah.
Okay. That one seems a little bit more difficult just because
it's so hard. It's so hard. All the great skills that we learn. In fact, I should probably tell you this. We think we have one brain and we have so many different parts. So the part right now, mostly that we're using, is this part here, the prefrontal cortex.
Okay.
It plans, it thinks, it decides what we're going to do 2 days from now. When your emotions get activated, there's thing deep in here called the amygdala, but essentially the whole emotional brain, the limbic brain, gets activated.
Okay.
And the first thing it does when it comes up, and it's intended to keep you alive, it's the thing that if there's a life or death, or the likelihood of something dangerous in your life, the emotional brain suddenly gets the talking, walking, and doing stick. The first thing it does is it cuts this part off. It throws a switch, and now the rational thinking part of you is offline. Right? It might still be trying to say something, but it doesn't matter. It's disconnected from the brain.
Okay.
And so now the emotional brain makes decisions in a very different way from this part. So it makes decisions in the moment, which means what's dangerous, what's not dangerous, is that safe, is that safe? And you may have heard people say, I don't know what got into me. I can't believe I said that. And the answer is, in a very truthful way, you didn't say that. Because the you that's talking now is not the you that was in charge.
Okay.
And it can take, the average is actually very precise, 26 minutes. When your emotional brain is activated, when the stimulus has stopped, it takes 26 minutes for it to settle down completely and for you to be fully back into prefrontal mode.
Wow.
Yeah.
26 minutes, okay.
So what that says, and this is where I think you started, sometimes when you're so activated, all these good ideas of what to do next, they can really go out of the room. So it might be helpful for you also to take a step back, just to say, look, I just need 5 minutes, or I just need 10 minutes, or I just need 26 minutes.
Right.
And then when you come back, a little bit more of this will be active, and you might remember, oh yeah, that one thing that Nadia and Peter talked about.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you recommend then, if you're feeling like fired up in that moment, then it's probably best to to slow down, maybe step apart for a little bit, and then come back to it.
Yeah. Or go to a couples therapist.
Oh, that's a good one. Yes, exactly. Perfect. Perfect. Do you have any more tips for us before we close?
I sometimes find that more is less, or less is more.
Okay.
So if we do like 3 or 4 or 7 other tips, they might all get mushed and munged together. So this actually might be a good few tips just for people to take away and maybe try 1 or 2 and just see how that works.
Okay, perfect. Well, feel free to rewind this video if you want to relearn the tips, and I completely recommend that you take notes if you haven't already. And the information for Peter and his practice will be below the video if you're on the blog, and then feel free to come into Method 3 anytime, and we'll be happy to pass on the information as well. And thank you so much, Peter, for being here today. I really appreciate all the tips.
Thank you too, and it's so nice to spend time with you guys as well. I appreciate you watching.
Have a great day.
Bye.